Things when we schedule them.
Thank you.
It's now 6:02. The Finance Committee will open their meeting. You're gonna do the same, or?
Yes.
Our vice chair.
Hey, how are you? So Ashley, our meeting opens at 6:02?
Yep.
Yeah.
You wanna open your meeting?
Yes, I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order, and it's now 6:03. Thank you.
All right, so if we want to play off each of our agendas, or we've got our agenda here that has been posted for us.
And your agenda is our agenda, and
The
your
same one, all right.
so
Except
take it away, Mr.
We
Kahan.
are going to, as a first call, we're going to approve the minutes of the August 21st meeting. Is it 21st, Ashley?
Yes.
Yeah, August 21st meeting. Everybody got a copy in advance? Any questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
And a second. Any further discussion, other discussions? There being none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. That's a vote. Next on the agenda, so we don't have to keep these gentlemen here too long, we would like to ask the police chief to come up. First. You're first, yeah. We're not going to make you wait. You're gonna sit in any one chair. Go right ahead, chief. One of each.
Thank you.
So Chief, we asked you to come. Normally you ask for a car a year. This year you got 3.
No, actually, we get 2 a year. The 2 years, too many years. Yeah, the last 2 years we've been getting 3. If you look at the sheet that I handed out, this is these are our line cruisers. You can see the 2 highlighted in pink. 97,500, 86,893. So those cars are unserviceable according to Ford. Once they get 90,000, that's it, as far as patrol vehicles. And if you look, the ones highlighted in yellow, they're fast approaching.
When you say unserviceable, you mean they will not any longer?
Be on the road. They can be used for details. But just to give you an idea, these cars, these patrol cars, these 6 that I have listed here. So an officer comes out at 7 o'clock in the morning, he drives until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 3 o'clock shift comes in, another guy gets in that same car, he drives until 11 o'clock at night. Another guy comes in at 11, he drives that same car until 7 in the morning. Every day, 24/7, 365. So we get about 2 years out. So their office is literally behind the steering wheel of that car. So as they approach 90,000, Ford says that they're no longer serviceable for pursuit, high-speed driving, that kind of thing. So we're still just trying to play catch-up the last 2 or 3 years, which is why we're getting 3. So if you take those 2 out of the rotation, the 2 in pink, that leaves me with 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have another one by the end of the year that will also be, of course, the detective's car at the bottom, which is 2012, which is also
Approaching.
Right. So, and if you look down at the bottom here, just to give you an idea, because I was asked, the admin fees, the cruiser fees that we collect for police details, and then I was also asked to provide a number for the citation payments to the town last fiscal year. So you can see that number, that all goes into the general fund, not to the police budget. So it's just a matter of maintaining. We generally have 3 or 4 cars out at a time. You put one down for service or something like that. We don't have an extra. Sometimes guys are forced to grab a detail car because it's all that's left in the lot. So, it's not like we issue them out 1 per guy or anything like that. I mean, we pretty much have the 6, and usually 4 of them are in use at one given time.
Do these cars come out of service, the 2016s?
So those are no longer, I won't let them drive them. They're just not safe.
I'm sorry, when I meant, do you take the plates off and?
No, so we do, we rotate them in for detail cars, with all the work that's going on. And we charge a 25% admin fee for use of the car to an outside contractor, certainly not to the town, and plus a 10% administrative fee, which, again, you can see how much goes back. That was just one fiscal year, 2019, for the use of those cars.
So these are all the cars we own?
No, so we have two unmarked, myself, the lieutenant, have one. These are just the line cars, and the detail cars are all over 100,000. They're just, I mean, some of them go back to Crown Vic. We still have two Crown Victorias from 2012.
How many of those, how many detail
We have
cars?
two of those left, and we have two at the highway barn that we use for parts, because it's cheaper just to pull parts off and they're not worth anything. So, so when we need, for instance, we needed a transmission for one of them, and we were able to, just pull a transmission out of the car that was sitting there. So we're trying to, use them up as much as we can, because ultimately, there's no real monetary value other than scrap, so they're worth more in parts to us. So.
So this year, you said, is Whittle anomaly getting 3 versus the normal 2? This,
Well, the 2 years that I've been chief, we've gotten 3, because we're trying to catch up. The fleet's been neglected for, frankly, 20 years. And so I'm just trying to get a serviceable number of cars in the rotation that, that don't have, the high mileage. So, like I said, so I have 4, I really need 4 cars, but I'm only asking for 3. So.
anybody else got any questions of the chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Chief, when you get these new ones, you're gonna rotate these Crown Vics out?
Honestly, it's cheaper to run them into the ground, but they're, while they're still serviceable and we're only doing oil changes, I'd rather use the oldest cars in details. I would never use a line car for a detail, to let it sit there and run for 8 hours. There's a lot of wear and tear on the components and the motor and everything. So eventually, when a car, if I can't use it for parts, I would ask the board to declare it surplus, and then we'd put it out for auction, and the money goes back to the town.
So, if I may, Mr. Chair, so when we buy 3 new ones, then we're adding 3 more to the fleet, and if my calculations are correct, that's as many cars as we have officers. On duty
No,
at any
we
given
have-
time?
What's that?
On duty at any given time?
No, so on patrol at any given time, there could be 4 or 5.
Okay.
During the day, myself and Lieutenant certainly would add to that number. So as cars become, unserviceable, they're no longer used. They're, like you said, we either use them for parts, or if they're serviceable enough, we can ask to have them declared as surplus and auction them out.
So let me be more specific. You're taking 3 and saying they're getting close. You want 3 new ones. You're asking for 3 new ones. So we're gonna replace those 3, which if I count patrol, then that gives us 5. Then you have 2 for one for yourself and 1 for lieutenant, 6 and 7. And then we're gonna have somewhere in the order of 5 to 7 for detail.
Correct. My car and Lieutenant's car are marked cars. They're not pursuit-rated cars. They're unmarked cars. So they're not. The cars that I'm asking for are marked, cruisers with lights and painted and all the equipment. That kind of thing,
So
Going to.
what's the impact of the insurance rate to the town? What's the impact of the insurance on the town if we keep adding to the fleet and never subtract?
You have to add, so that's what I would say is we need to compensate in insurance for adding more vehicles on and not just replacing. Which we conceptually hadn't done, but I think we have to consider that question every time now. Is it a replacement or is it an add-on?
So we do, we have taken cars off. I mean, every year we take a couple of cars off. Like I said, the last batch, we took, 2 or 3 cars and put them down at the highway. So they were taken off. And, as pretty much as soon as we get them, like if we ordered cars now, we wouldn't get them until January. So if I don't have a need for 5, 6, 7 detail cars, then then there's no sense in keeping them. They clutter up the parking lot kind of thing, and we certainly declare them surplus. But with the 3 water project at the same time going, plus Verizon's in doing fiber optic, the tree cutters are in doing the side roads. You know, we've needed the vehicles, and like I said, we charge 25% back for them, you know, they're long paid for, so we are recouping that money. Like I said, $25,774 in cruiser fees to outside contractors last fiscal year. I think that more than covers probably our insurance.
It's just they need to add, they keep it fairly flat, so last year I kind of was like, oh, I added 5 vehicles between police and fire, and it's like we didn't kind of expect that.
We've also added people too. I mean, we have an SRO now, we have the traffic officer now, so, you know, we're also slowly growing as well, and, you know, we need to give the officer a postal pay path. He takes one of those older cars because he just goes from the station to Bay Path. But, you know, if he's there alone, if something happens, he needs a cruiser, he needs the radios, he needs the computers. The traffic officer, he has a car that was mandated by both boards, and you can see the revenue that he's brought in. Not that we're about revenue, we're not, but I was asked a question, so that's why I'm providing it for you. You know, we're doing the best we can. We're, you know, and if we need the cars, we keep the cars. If, you know, if I see that the details are going to slow down and you know, they're starting to pile up, I'll certainly, you know, declare them surplus or ask the board, selectmen to declare them surplus.
So Donna, when we get a request like this, when there are added on expenses, if we can somehow tie this together.
Right.
Because we're not just looking at the cost of 3 new cars, we're looking at.
And more fuel, because they're all running.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody else got any questions of the chief? No? Thank you for the explanation.
Okay.
We appreciate you coming in.
Sure, thanks for having me. Good to see everybody.
Have a good evening, Chief.
That's it. All right, next on the agenda, we have fire chief, talk about a fire truck. You have handouts too, chief?
I have a few handouts. I don't have enough for everybody because my packet's a little thicker, but I will split them amongst everybody.
Somewhere. So you've got on the warrant, new fire truck for this year.
That is correct.
All right. Can we hear a little bit more about what's $603,000
What it buys you is a new NFPA compliant fire engine for the town of Joe. It is in line to replace engine 1, which is out of compliance.
In what way, chief?
It is 25 years old. It has severe wear and tear on it, and listed in here the reasonings for the non-compliant. Every cycle they add on new safety measures to new vehicles. So there's an issue with rollover stability. There's no seatbelt warning system in the vehicle. It doesn't have enough surface lighting to make the area around the vehicle safe for operations. The cab integrity is in question. There's no reflective striping on the back or seats as required. The noise level standard has been eclipsed, and also equipment mounting kit inside the cab. These are all reasons for non-compliance. And if you look at the pictures that are provided, the vehicle definitely shows it's 25 years of wear and tear. There is severe undercarriage rust that is basically going to compromise the structure of the chassis.
The truck should not be taken out of service per se. It's just not compliant with today's standards.
It should be taken out of service based on NFPA, and I read.
That was going to be my next question. Is there a liability to us because we're running in non-compliant?
I will say that that will be the first thing that's looked at in the event of an incident with that vehicle. And it says apparatus that were not manufactured to the applicable NFPA standard, which is the 2016 edition, or that are over 25 years old should be replaced. In this case, this vehicle meets all of those. We're trying to put our engines on a 15-year cycle for replacement, just so we never run into that situation and we get the use out of them that we need.
Is that typical in most fire departments?
Typically, yes. Some do shorter bouts of time. Very few and far between do, at least in this area, go above and beyond that. As far as full-time departments.
The new truck a twin to the one coming out of service, or is it?
No, it's going to be a similar truck to our newest engine, obviously with the upgrades that are required. Certain things.
But I didn't know higher gallon per minute capacity or.
It's actually going to have a bigger tank. The pump is the same, 1,250 gallons. The tank is, Deputy, that's 1,250, I believe is what
Yes,
we're
it's
looking at.
1,250 gallons.
1,250 gallons. The current one is only 1,000 gallons. But yeah, it meets the requirements that we're looking for.
Okay. I know there was one there's one for this year, and I believe the next one is what, in 5 years or 3 years? What was the?
2 years for a rescue truck.
In 2 years.
Yeah, for a rescue truck.
And in between there's probably an ambulance. The ambulances we run on a 9-year cycle. So every 3 years we would be looking to replace an ambulance.
Okay.
And that's just because of the wear and tear that we provide out. Our newest vehicle has almost 70,000, 80,000 miles on it.
The newest one we just put on the road last.
2 years ago, I believe. So,
Yeah. So you're trying to go on a 15-year cycle.
For engines. And a 9-year cycle on ambulances. And like Donna said, we do have some other vehicles that are, we've looked at 20-year cycles for them just because, like the rescue vehicle, the heavy rescue, the tanker, ones that aren't used as frequently.
The rescue one is the one that's going to be on in 22.
22, I believe it is.
22. You remember what the cost of that one might be?
It's
You got it right in front of you?
And that's approximately the same.
600.
And I'll be quite honest with you, we haven't even looked at specking it out yet.
Here's the ambulance. Nothing in 22. You haven't thought that far in advance, okay. So, gotta remember though, Chief, that part of what, at least our board is looking for, and I'm sure that, okay, is more than just next year, the year after. We're trying to put together, what are we gonna?
I have a full 20-year
That would be
purchase
nice.
plan
That would be nice.
that I provided to Donna.
You need it to me.
They limit us to 5, they don't want shock.
Huh?
They limit us to 5, they don't want us to be shocked.
Get sticker shock for a while.
I will also say that there is a radio project that's out there for both police, fire, and also highway. That we finished phase 1 of that project. There's 2 other phases that need to happen in order to provide the town with the proper radio communication access for the whole town. So our police and fire aren't in areas where they can't get out with a radio signal. And that, I've gotten a revised estimate of $500,000 still left on that project.
That's for phase 2.
For completion, all of it, phase 2 and 3.
Phase 2 and 3. So phase 1 doesn't do us any good until phase 2 and phase 3.
No, that was just basically upgrading what we currently have in dispatch and other areas like that. We're looking at adding motor systems, which are basically antennas throughout the dead sections in town where we can't get a proper radio signal back to the station.
Mhm.
So we've got an area on 169 that there's not a radio that we can talk without getting into the actual truck to talk back to dispatch. And there's an area obviously on the southeast corner of town
And when is this due to come before us?
Good question.
May?
I would like to present it again at that time, because I think it needs to move forward at some point.
Okay. Any other good news?
I know. The only thing I can say is that I don't think the price of fire trucks.
Donna, was there something we wanted to talk about, how we were gonna finance this, or?
So,
maybe-
this is on for borrowing, and I did just kind of rough out a 10-year and versus a 30-year. I don't recommend a 30 because you're replacing every 20, right?
15 is what the chief just said.
So at 30, it would have been about $30,000 a year. At 10 years, it's about $70,000 a year. There is a kind of a little bit of a cost savings if you were to borrow both vehicles at the same time, then I don't have to pay that borrowing cost a year later.
What are the borrowing costs on a $600,000?
I don't know. Do you have any idea what it costs now?
Well, it would probably be somewhere around, probably 15,000?
Huh?
15,000?
When you say tie it together, which,
So his rescue truck it's in 2 years from now, for another 600,000, I would presume is gonna be another borrowing. So those are relatively very small borrowings. You'd be better with a little bit more, a larger borrowing.
okay. Can I write on this one? Yeah, so that's something we will discuss ourselves, but that might be whatever we can do to save some money. It's just the cash flow of what we gotta worry about. The annual cash flow. So combine those.
On that note, I've broached or asked regarding the ambulance receipts funds and possibly setting aside X amount out of that account to be used for vehicle purchase. That's something that you guys can discuss. There is an option there.
No, there has been some discussion of vehicle stabilization for just vehicles. Because we know we gotta build this part up at some point. That's something we're gonna have to talk about more long-term.
And even if you were to do the borrowing for the both, you might be able to time it, so there is a year or so gap in between, as long as they don't arbitrage.
Right now, I would guarantee you that there'll be a year between, because it takes us 6 months to spec it and then another year for them to build.
Yeah, but if we get all the authorization at one time, saying we save the
Right.
1,000. Anybody else got a question of the chief?
Chairman, through you. Chief, just briefly, I know we want to get to a 15-year cycle, and I think most people would agree that's where we want to be. That being said, is it a fair statement that 25 years is really an outlier, that it's really not acceptable? I mean, I know that it's not in compliance, but also practically speaking, isn't 25 years really starting
Are
time?
you asking my personal opinion? The answer is most certainly yes. It's beyond.
Yeah, and I suppose that's what I was getting at via your expertise.
I wouldn't
In
go
other-
beyond 18, but that's just me.
In other towns, I've seen anything above 20, it's just an automatic, it's gone.
Yeah, it shouldn't even be in service.
Correct. So the fact that we're even at 25, and it is 25 now, right?
It is 25.
In fact, it's 25 now, and you'll still need it for at least another 18 months, based upon spec and delivery.
Yes.
Now you're at 26.
Well, we've already spec the truck.
This one is spec, all right.
So we are ready to go out to bid.
But you're probably still talking an additional 10 to 12 months that you have to leverage it. So now we're up to 26 years, which that much more liability. So, Tom, okay, that's what I thought, I just want to confirm. Thank you.
Anybody else? Question, the chief? Being none. Thank you very much, chief. Appreciate the explanation. Material for some sleepy night.
People want copies, I can certainly get them to you.
Jason, do you know
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, email is much better.
Yeah.
Save the trees.
Save the trees, that's why I only printed 5 copies.
Yeah, that's good. Next up, on my agenda, I had the planning board, there was a capital expenditure of the master plan. I just wanted to go up through it and explain to me.
The master plan for the bylaws,
Mhm.
so I think that's just a typo. To do our general bylaws, we actually will be voting on the RFP this coming meeting, and so we haven't even touched yet the money that was given to us in May.
Okay,
And so we
that
will.
rolled over, right, Ron? Because it
Yes,
is- yeah,
that's a
right.
carryover.
So, correct me, I don't think we'll need, the project itself is estimated to cost about 100,000, but I don't think we need anything else until probably the next May meeting, so we're good with.
The 50 will get you through between now and then. And this is just a rewrite of our laws and
So-
put them in a,
Our bylaws, and this is why we've been having so many problems, they're just archaic, and so we do small little fixes, and there are things throughout that don't agree with each other. So it'll refer you to something else, and it's telling you two different things, and it makes it complicated. We really need a professional to come in and go through this bylaw. And if you've ever looked in our zoning bylaw, it's confusing to read, and the online version, the link and our actual, they don't agree. It's because the state has the copy and the links. We need to get all that straightened out. We need to kind of have it and update. New things have been invented, and new businesses that are just not mentioned in there. We have to clarify some things. And again, we need one of the law specialists to come in and make sure we're all in compliance and agree with state law, et cetera, et cetera.
so just to understand, so this 50,000 really is, we're just giving it, or reauthorizing something they've already had, no? It's different.
They've been authorized, they had asked for zoning review,
Right?
as Patsy just talked about. This is different, this is the master plan.
We have-
And so that's what this money is for. It's for the master plan. I was told by your planner that you were ready to go forward with that next, and that going at the same time
Okay.
might be good. If you're not, then we could move that.
So, yeah, I'll take it. It's, I think it's going to be too huge. Just the bylaws is a huge project, and doing the master plan together might be difficult. I guess something that will, this was, we didn't have our last meeting, we were supposed to discuss it because of the email issue, so we're, that decision hasn't even been made by the board. But in reality, anybody who knows planning, the bylaws should actually help aid the master plan. So if we have a master plan, our bylaws should allow us to carry through our master plan. And we are going backwards, but we're going backwards because we need to. We really do need to update our bylaws before anything else happens that ends up in lawsuits. We need to protect us by having, correct bylaws. So with that being said, if the decision has to be made right now, please, we'll love the 50, we RFP, and I'll talk with the board on the 18th. We have our next meeting, and we'll see if they are ready to be committed to both, because it's more than just meetings, it's public sessions. Down here, this room fills up. It's a lot more than just us sitting there dealing with a consultant. It brings the whole entire town in. And usually members from all other boards. It's a big thing.
Okay.
Right, is that,
Anybody got any other questions on this particular expenditure?
Through the chair.
And how, yes.
Madam Chairperson, so would you then want to go back to your board to discuss, to your point around, do you want to do the master plan now? And if the answer is no, for whatever reason, because to your point, I mean, if you've ever been involved in one, it's an enormous effort, because it literally should dictate the strategy of your town for the next 10 to 15 years, and it's actually fun to be a part of, but it's very time consuming as well. But if they said no, would you not want this money for now, and to basically come back and ask later? I mean, obviously everyone wants money, but I suppose, is there some other expenditure that you want this for?
I don't, not for any other capital. If I can answer this question on next Wednesday, I could give a better answer. Again, it is a huge, and ours are, I think we're 2 years, every 10 years it is recommended that you update it, and I think we're on year 12, but a lot has happened in a decade.
We agree the
Like-
master plan does need to be looked at.
Oh, yeah.
Do we want to undertake it right now with the bylaw? That's something that the entire board is going to have to discuss to see
That's
if
huge.
they want to do that.
I say, yeah, let's do it, but I'm willing to be here every night, and
Would it be detrimental if it was postponed funding for 1 year until the,
for the master plan.
yeah?
I think it's gonna take us a year to get our zoning bylaws all cleaned up. And we'll leave the other half of the zoning bylaws, so it's, we had some rough estimates, and if they were about 100,000, so
Just for the bylaws.
just for the bylaws. And it would be our map too, because our zoning.
So
map is-
we gave you 50 in May for zoning, you're saying you need another 50 for zoning? To complete zoning?
But we haven't spent any of that, do you understand, so,
We have 50 already, correct?
Right, and you'll need another 50?
yeah.
And then 50 for the master plan?
If you want to go
Probably
back.
more than that, also.
Yeah, we haven't got we haven't even looked, unless, maybe Ashley suggested some prices, and I don't know where we are. I would think that would be more than the zoning bylaws. It is, again, there's open sessions, many. I think last time we had maybe 8 or 10, and they're held down here, all the residents come in, all business owners, and it's been quite a.
So in the simplest part, okay, I want to know, is this master plan update under project requested the wrong name in this box? Because it sounds like it should be. No, it's not.
No, it's correct.
It is correct.
But I'm wondering if you should, again, just hypothetical, ask for the 50 to supplement the 50 you got last year now for zoning. So in a sense, don't even talk about the master plan now, but take the 50 and use it towards the zoning if you think that you're gonna need more money regardless.
We just get it, instead of asking for it in May, we ask for it now. And then if, in the meantime, we decide that we're gonna take on the master plan and kind of finish up the bylaw and bring it on, then in May, we can come back and have the same discussion. Does that make
That
sense?
sounds.
Yeah, that's,
better.
right, yeah. Because it sounds, through the chair, I mean, it sounds to me that you're gonna need a larger capital expenditure to do zoning regardless, zoning / overall
It's gonna be
bylaws.
100 definitely.
Yeah, so it seems that instead of potentially asking for the master plan now, you just do the zoning, and then come back later when your board feels more comfortable, and that could be May, to say, yeah, let's go ahead with the master plan, but at least you have the money. But Mr. Chairman, obviously, I defer to you.
Yeah, that's-
I'm also gonna suggest too that you have cemetery that didn't make it on this list that is coming before you, that may be an expense that's a priority over this right now.
Okay.
And to come back in May or in our next fall, you may have more numbers.
Okay, you're saying come back to the other 50 for zoning.
Zoning, they're not ready for the
And
master plan.
and not
Doesn't-
change this to any other, let's just save this 50,000 and talk to somebody that's sitting behind us.
Correct.
So we
just
have the
gave it
50, so we already have the $50,000, and then
Right.
we just use that to pay the first half, and then
Right.
in May.
And get to May with it,
Okay.
okay?
Can you?
Through the chair, can I ask a
I
question?
think
Yes.
so
Excuse me.
this,
Hi, Patsy, can I ask a question? Thank you. Where are you in the process of revising the zoning bylaws at this point?
we have a draft RFP,
Uh-huh.
and I reviewed it in detail, and James reviewed it in detail. It looks great, ready to go. We just need to put it in front of the board next week and vote to release it,
Okay.
and get our get our quotes in and choose our contractor, and then, you know, it's, and just move on, and that project should take 9 months, 10 months.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to know where we were in the process moving forward.
I would also recommend that you send the RFP to town council and have them take a look at it, since it is so big and complicated.
Thank you.
So out of Article 4, capital and related contracts, we're gonna scratch right now the planning board and the master plan. And that 50 is just gonna sit in this column until we fill in something different. All right, thank you for your explanation of that one. All right, so next I had on my agenda other proposed, but if the cemetery department is here and they would like to come up. Over here we added.
Okay, we have two things. I don't know which one you want to talk about first. We had asked for money for a lawnmower, a riding mower, a new mower. The current one we have is a 2010 Ferris ZTR, and what we want to get is a new Gravely ZTR that is consuming oil like there's no tomorrow. It's 10 years old. It's one of our pieces of equipment that's used all the time. And that's an article, I believe, or in the
It's
capital.
already.
Okay. And then our special request was for discussion on some money to repair the retaining wall at Northside Cemetery, and I didn't know which one you wanted to discuss at this point.
I think we all know what the mower will do.
Okay.
Being a stone guy, I'd like to hear about the wall.
Well, it's the front wall as you approach the cemetery from Route, what's that, Old Stafford Street. Or Stafford Street. And we noticed this about a year ago that it was starting to give way. It looks pretty bad. I have some pictures that I took and you can take a look at them. We tried to get some quotes. It's going to come in under 25,000, we believe. And it was hard to get anybody to even give us a quote. And I have, let's see, we were going to look at grants, but without quotes, you can't get a grant. And where is it? I did this is a general scope of the work that I did with our cemetery superintendent. He's not here tonight because he hurt his back at work this morning. But he said if you have questions, he's by his phone and he will take your call. And what we're concerned about, if you look at that, the pictures of the stone wall, as you first come up to the wall, before you get to the entrance, the first third or half of the wall is there's nobody buried on the underside. So we're not quite as concerned about that. But the next part, all the way up to the entrance, there are residents. And depending upon the winter that we have and the amount of moisture and everything, we're really getting concerned about that wall. Actually, the whole wall, even down after the entrance, needs work, but if we could just get the funding for the first part now, and get some action going there, we feel better.
So you don't have a quote, so you
We
really
have-
don't have
Well,
dollar value associated with this.
well, here's a fellow that gave us a proposal. I don't think he was all that serious, but he said proposal 2 comes in 17, almost 18,000. And we have another fellow that Jim our superintendent talked with, and he sounded like he was interested in doing the work. I think, I don't remember my procurement rules all that well, it's been a few years, but I think since it's under 25,000, we don't have to go and do a lot of elaborate bidding and everything.
Well, we have to go
To get 3 quotes.
What was that?
We have to get 3 written
We
quotes.
would get 3 quotes, but not,
You don't have to.
we don't have, okay, that's what I was thinking, but we had trouble getting even those.
If I can
Just try.
if I can say, it
Yeah.
might be advantageous if you're having some trouble getting quotes, to actually go ahead and advertise it as a invitation for bid.
Okay.
So I would recommend that you actually consider that, and if I can continue, I did take a look at the wall. It is in difficult shape, and I would certainly recommend that if the committee was amenable to consider the, maybe 30,000 towards this wall. It is a long portion of it.
Yeah.
The whole wall really does need to be looked at, and would probably save you money if you did it all at the same time.
Is this an aesthetic issue or a safety issue?
Well, that's why I went down to take a look at it too. I think it's gonna be a safety issue. If
Yeah.
it pulls out any further, and you know, climate change is, can be controversial, but there are some consequences of some of the extraordinary flooding that we've had and water, and if it, as you know, as it builds back behind the wall, and pushes out, one could end up in the road, and if that happens in the middle of the night and someone comes through, it could be tragic. But it also, I think, would cost more later if we're trying to pick up a wall out of the road versus we can plan and get it done now.
For the chair, is this something we could approach BayPath, the high school, to see if their students or that they could do, because I know they do things like that.
No, but this
projects
is,
that-
looking at that.
Oh, you would know.
It's
I know
beyond
you
your
would know.
scope.
It's a historic wall, so I don't think the students are learning how to do historic work. I think they're probably working more with mortar. This is,
Yeah.
most of this is just stone on stone, because it's a really old wall.
Just out of curiosity, have you talked to Jimmy Baker here in town?
I don't know who Jim
Right.
Burlingame has talked with, I don't know if he's talked to
Just
Jim Baker.
write it down, Jim Baker, Native Landscape. He teaches stone wall building up at the Botanical Gardens in West Boylston. There's nobody better at historic stone walls. And he lives right here in Charlton.
He lives in Charlton
Yes.
and he teaches at where?
He teaches up at the Botanical Gardens up there in West Boylston.
Boylston.
Boylston. He could give you a good evaluation too.
Okay.
So the question before us is, so, not that we just found $50,000, okay? But we have unallocated. Your thought was 30 for this project?
I think that would be a reasonable amount.
Anybody else got a thought on inserting? So we'll change all the boxes right straight across. Cemetery department, stone wall rebuild, and $30,000.
You can keep these pictures if you want to. And the other.
You understand that we're putting this in for planning, okay?
Right.
We're not voting on,
For planning.
right, on this particular,
Okay.
just so that we all understand. Wall repair. Coming from free cash. Any other questions of the cemetery department?
That's it?
You
Yes.
do have some building issues, so I don't know if you want to hear what their concerns are. I know that you've been looking at the 5-year capital plan. You might want to hear what she has to say about the building that they are proposing.
Or you're talking about our garage?
Your garage.
We've been,
And the need for it.
we
So people
need
are aware.
space desperately. Our garage our main place of storage is at Westridge Cemetery. On one side of the garage is a septic system, and on the other side of the garage is what? something where we can't build, we can't add on. We need a separate building. We have equipment stored at Northridge. We have it stored at Westridge, at Northside, at Bay Path Cemetery. We have it in about 6 different places, our equipment. If we could get it all in one or maybe 2 places, that would really be great. The building the garage at Westridge, we have problems with the plumbing in the winter. There's not a lot of heat in there. Off the top of my head, I can't remember right now what we had estimated.
Chief, don't you have some spare room in any one of your buildings?
In mine,
So we need another place to store an extra thing. Yeah. Our cemetery superintendent, like I told you, today he hurt his back, and he's a one-man band because of our 2 summer people. One went back to college, and the other one hurt his back. So we have now nobody, so don't anybody need our services, please, until our superintendent can get back to work.
So, Robin, wasn't there a time when they were talking about something in conjunction with the highway department?
They were, the municipal building committee, I know, had gone down to the DPW department to take a look at whether or not it might be feasible. Some of the comments that I heard was it might make more sense to look at maybe down at that property, but where Jerry has his lean-to is where they were looking at, and he has need for that space, so it didn't seem like it would make sense. There's a lot of land down on Flint Road if you were trying to create some kind of DPW type complex. You may be able to just put a building back there that might meet their needs. But I think that you want to have a conversation about that, and just wanted that to be on your radar. It may be helpful in the short term to try and do something with their shed down at
Westridge.
In the short term, but I think you do need to take a look at this long term.
We are not in favor, the commission right now is not in favor of moving down to the highway facilities. Because we have 9, maybe 10 cemeteries now, and they're all over town, and to have our our superintendent having to go to the highway barn to get his equipment and then go, let's say, to Northside, it's just not convenient, it's not efficient, you're right, it's just, that's why if we could have something in the center of town, we have 2 cemeteries that are primary, that we still bury people in, Westridge and Northside. Once in a rare blue moon do we put anybody at Union, but the other cemeteries are just, we maintain them. But it's just not convenient for us to, we do a lot of running and ramming between cemeteries as it is, and I have to put that extra 3 miles a day for our highway superintendent on the vehicle. It's
Is this something the municipal building group?
They are looking at it.
They are looking at it, so it's already in their purview. All right, thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for the information that you've given us on that.
okay. Any other questions? Suggestions or anything? Well, we'll check on the invitation to bid. We're going to have a meeting later this month, and we'll talk about that then. And we'll talk to Mr. Baker.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so there are other capital expenditures on the chart that everybody's got. I just wanted to throw those out. If there's any discussion you want to have on any of the other items. Robin's got a brand new set for those that may have last week's set that's on there.
Changes up to today.
Well, I was going to ask around the electric voting system, just to kind of talk through it and exactly sorry, the voting system, which I'm assuming would be for town meeting?
So we can come to that. Let me just first tell you that the first couple of pages are this is a draft warrant. This has not been closed. The board of selectmen wanted to wait to meet with you. So these articles are not, they can come on, they can come off, whatever you choose to do tonight. On the fourth page, you'll see Article 2. And again, these are drafts. There's Article 2, which is the intra-departmental transfers and/or appropriations. Article 3 is the capital items and related contracts. Article 4 is...
Actually, Article 3 over here is the $90,000 from the table.
Okay, then I added some, so okay, I will renumber those. So the Article 4 now is the table. Then you have the replacement engine from the fire chief. You have transfer to and from stabilization, and right now that is earmarked to have $260,000 put back in stabilization. Transfer to and from stabilization funds. You have the $260,000, then you have the some requests from water sewer. If Peter's still here, if you have questions on those. And then on the last page, there's an interdepartmental study that the Board of Selectmen had talked about. And on the last page, you have free cash and stabilization, and in the top cells, you have what the balances are, and then if everything was voted, what you would have left.
Okay, so everybody understands now the pieces of paper we have in front of us. So let's go back to discussion on the electronic voting system.
Or at least start there. Yeah, so, Robin, maybe come up with that. I know that this was a conversation piece based upon our last town meeting especially. Again, I'm assuming that this is it, so that basically, I don't want to call it an app because it sounds too simplistic, but it would basically be, in a sense, secret ballot on every town meeting vote because you would be issued something as soon as you walk in. I think most people, at least I've spoken with, are proponents of the idea. My question is, though, is that $20,000 a one-time expenditure, or is that $20,000 for every single town meeting?
The $20,000 would be to purchase, and then there would be an additional, you would have, just as we have software and setup costs.
So there would be ongoing, reoccurring.
It would add cost.
Okay. Of how much, do we know?
Well, not $20,000.
No, I'm guessing it would be like software.
Yeah, $1,000 a year, or $1,500 a year. This is the first. This was the first time when I saw this the other night. First time I'd seen it. What is the rationale behind this? Okay, so we don't have to give out little yellow piece of paper.
Can I speak anecdotally? I'm sorry.
No.
I mean, the people that I've spoken with, there is again, I don't know if this is a majority, but there is a discomfort by certain voters around voting for, let's say, more controversial items in front of their neighbors, peers, if you work for the town, etc., by raising your hand, doing roll call votes, etc. That would eliminate this. It would simply say, by showing up to town meeting, you can vote with complete anonymity and not have to worry about what your neighbor thinks about you. I'm oversimplifying a bit, but for all intents and purposes, that's what people have that spoke to me feel about it. And that they really just want to say, I've been told, again, I don't know if there's truth to it, that from individuals that they would have voted differently if they could have done X, Y, Z vote by secret ballot, as opposed to having to raise their hands. And I think that this looks to solve for that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but at least anecdotally, I can tell you that's what people have spoken to me about.
Through the chair. Can I ask Bill a
Who's
question?
first? Okay,
Thank you. Since you seem to, you know a lot about this.
I have rhino burning.
Okay, so, I'm wondering, one, would it be used for every vote?
I would assume, again, I'm just going off of my personal feeling,
Okay.
I would assume yes.
They can give you some information on this.
And will it save time?
I would also assume yes.
Because time is money. So if it saves time, then it means that's less we're paying the attorneys to sit in there with us for 2, 3, 4 hours. So there is some cost savings associated. I see some cost savings associated with this from that standpoint. But just the efficiency of it
What if
makes
the
sense.
software goes down?
I thought about that. Software constantly gets upgrades. Sometimes software becomes obsolete. So I'd want to have whomever we purchase the software from have a guarantee built in there that it's never going to be outdated. And if it, and if it does get outdated, there is a contingency plan, because everything gets outdated.
Or companies go out of business that provide the software.
Right.
So
There is
There's a cost and a replacement cost, just like voting machines.
So we want to set up a secret vote in an open town meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does happen occasionally now. I think that this would just standardize it.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So I have been approached by residents too who think this is a great idea. And actually, I think we've received emails from residents asking for us to put this on the capital plan, if you will. The other thing it would do, with all due respect to the counters, it's would be, I think, accurate. Not saying that, so those are kind of the pros. The other thing, because I'm always in for sharing and trying to save money, I don't know if this is something that we should look at buying with another town, with the schools, because let's face it, we don't all have our town meetings on the same night. The schools may be able to utilize this for mock town meetings and other things, but there may be a way to share the cost. But I can tell you, people have approached and said, for accuracy, for the controversial issues, for
Efficiency.
to be lean, and other towns are actually this is kind of getting, moving into, more modernized.
We've had one requirement of the secret ballot in the last 5 years that I've been attending town meetings, okay? $20,000 just seems like a lot of money.
That's minimum.
And at least now, if you have to hold your card up, I know who's getting counted because they're holding the card up. I don't know who's collecting 6 or 7 different clickers, okay? Voting for 6 or 7 other people. Huh?
I don't think they're clickers, but.
Whatever they are.
But I think that's the issue.
I don't know, it just
Yeah.
seems like.
It removes the charm of town meeting, because I've always been a believer that, look, that's, again, I'll wrap myself in a flag for only 10 seconds, that's what small town communities have always been about. That you are willing to show up, you're willing to voice your opinion, and people know where you stand. It removes a lot of that. However, I also think to myself, all right, am I just being nostalgic? Do we need a different way to proceed in order, as we become, well, let's be honest, over the next few years, we would either debt exclusions or whatever it may be, there's gonna be a lot of stuff coming at us. And people feel more comfortable in voting secretly. And this, quite honestly, may be the wave of the future. I don't necessarily, again, I don't find it charming at all, but this may be the way things are going to progress, and I begrudgingly support it.
I'll let you guys talk. I'm on the mindset it's $20,000.
I just have one other thought.
Yes.
Because the electronic voting system will be more efficient, a little faster, perhaps we might have more attendance at the meetings if people knew they weren't going to be there until 11 or 12 o'clock at night, because the votes will happen that much quicker.
And I look at the number of times we've actually had to do it.
I understand.
Or had to versus should have potentially. I think that's one of the discussions.
And I do go back to the accuracy of the counts. It's just human nature, if we're all, we make errors, there's no error if you're pushing that button, so.
Yes.
This 20,000, what is the capacity does it give us? 500 votes, 200
It's
votes?
either 300 or 500. I think Karen said 500.
Not me.
Karen looked at Karen.
All right, because
If I can give my
Does- the middle school holds 550 in that room, so there could be, we're cutting it close, I think, with the meetings these days.
If I may, Mr. Chair, make a simple statement. Given what just happened to our technology systems here, I think we ought to rethink this one before we move forward.
Mr. Chair, I guess one example is the public safety complex building. That town meeting had passed with 5 dissenting votes because a lot of people don't want it don't want to be the negative person voting against the fire and police department in an open setting. And you go to your private ballot for the debt exclusion, and it failed by 2-1. Granted, there's different people here and there, but I don't think you got a representative cross-section of what that vote would be like at your town meeting, because it was an open public vote where people had to raise their hands. So that's kind of the most recent.
That's a valid argument.
The most recent example, I think.
And a good example.
For the chair.
Yes.
Yeah, how many people were at the town hall to vote, and how many people went to and voted a ballot? Voted and said, it was like, let's.
230 at one and 1,400 at the other.
Yeah, it was huge. It was huge.
Well,
If you want to know more about the actual ballot. So they tend to, where I live, they use them.
Yeah.
So when I go to a town meeting for my town, they are about half the size of the phone. They have a button 1, 2, and it almost looks like a car, a garage door opener. You have a screen, they type it up, and the question comes up on the screen. If there's amendments, they type the amendments in there so everyone can see what they're voting on, basically. It does speed up the meetings. It actually, the moderator needs to slow them down sometimes, because sometimes somebody will yell from the back, motion to dispense with the reading, they're gone, anybody talk, and then they put the clicker on. So they open the window of the clicker, there's a 1 and a 2, 1 is for yes, 2 is for no. We have already had conversations about doing this regionally. Webster has them, I know Dudley's talking about doing them. I've had conversations with Karen about, she's looking at the same ones. So you're absolutely right, if there is an off night and a special meeting that you need, and you know you're going to have a lot of people, you can borrow them. So that is the beauty, and I would definitely recommend that you buy the same ones as the neighboring towns have. So I think Webster has 300, and they make
We
it go
would
on
need
faster.
about the same. That's about our.
Webster has a member, right? They have a different form of government.
They're open meeting.
Are they open meeting? I thought they were
Yeah.
voting members and.
Auburn.
Right, I mean, I'm just leave it on there, and it's not like we're gonna scratch it, we're not approving it. If you guys all think, it sounds like all three of you are in favor of this.
This is the first I've heard of it tonight, but yes, I'm in favor of it.
About this board, any other discussions from this board? On this particular issue? About any other discussions on capital items? Now that we've talked about that one. We've heard about the police cruisers.
Article to,
Are we on there
go
yet?
write down the articles maybe?
Yeah, right now we're, well, we were just on what I'll call agenda item number 6, with other proposed capital expenditures, so if someone had a question, like Bill had one on that one, sorry. But if you want to now go through, with Pete in the back, I don't want to keep him here too late tonight. I thought maybe we could start to at least talk right now about the stabilization fund, what our long-term thoughts are, and then we can start to go into some of this, or do you want to talk about the warrant articles themselves, and then we'll hit the stabilization after?
Just through the chair, I like the order that you have on the agenda. I like the fact that you're going to talk about policies and procedures for legal
For
funds
legal
before we
yes.
get into that. I think it flows better, but
Yeah, that's-
just my opinion.
That's why,
Mr. Chair,
yes?
can I interrupt just for a moment?
Yes.
We have our representative here, and he's going to need to leave. I don't know if you wanted to.
I don't want to
say-
interrupt, yeah, I don't want to interrupt you, I just wanted to come by and kind of see what's going on, so.
No, appreciate it.
I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have, but I really don't have
Yeah,
much
how
to
do we get-
offer.
one quick question, how do we get the DPU to do what we want them to do and not what they want to do?
I'll get back to you on that.
No, I got an hour.
There was a question, Mary had sent me an email about the legislation that we filed a couple, maybe a month or so ago, on the citizens having the recall petition. We put it forward to the legislature. It's been put to election laws. It's House number 4034, I think. and we're waiting for a public hearing. So we expect a public hearing probably sometime this fall, and it'll move through the process after that. So that's about it.
All right. I appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah.
Thanks for seeing how we're doing.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
All right, good night.
All right, so let's skip over, we'll skip over number 8 for the time being. Let's get right to number 7. Let's talk about the stabilization and what our goals are. We've got a set of goals, and I understand now that the Board of Selectmen also have their goals. And I don't know whether you've seen our sheet of 10 goals for the year, it's there somewhere. But our number 1 goal is maintaining a stabilization fund of 10% of the operating budget of the town. Right? We spent $29 million last year. Is that our budget? Something in there? 30 million. So having 3. And I heard you guys have an even higher number. That's according to Dave. Okay.
Yeah, I can tell you that speaking to David just on the side, his number's a little higher than mine. He was looking at around 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I, myself, just personally, I fall in the middle between 3 and 3.5. I think would be very healthy. So that aligns very closely with the 10%. But I think, at least for myself, that a baseline of 3 is the absolute minimum. Now I know there are others who have thoughts. It's just that's me. So I would go along, for example, with that 10% target.
So we're all going to agree that the 3 million, and now we're going to go back into these warrant articles, and we're going to go back into some of these other costs. How do we balance those out? Okay, is what I want to make sure we're all again on the same page, right? If we're trying to, and Robin, I know that the number comes down to what, 540,000, right? Which I was a little disappointed to see that number. Granted, there are other factors involved. There's no way I want to see it drop in any one year. It should not drop. We've got to figure out a way to do this where we're, if not at least maintaining, increasing, even if it's just incremental. So that's my thought, right? If the rest, the rest of the finance committee, I think we've talked about this in the past, and that's why we have our 10%. And we're going to try and stick to it, right? Which is why I have no problem crossing out a police car or something along the ways. Is he fine? Yeah. You didn't get that, Drew, right?
Well, Henry, I think one thing to say is that, anybody definitely correct me, that we actually haven't had our official goal discussion yet. So, yeah, so there's no real number. This is just individual members throwing stuff out there. I just happen to agree with you.
Now, what I will do then is I will send you a copy of our goal. Actually, did we get it? Actually, no. I haven't given it the final.
Unless you said during the crash, I haven't gotten anything.
Yes, that's the latest one.
Okay.
The Board of Selectmen does have a policy of 10%.
Who does it?
Bitsy over here, and there is a policy that the Board of Selectmen approved, which is 10%.
That was the policy you all approved too. I think we said 10%.
Good. All right.
These are very reasonable, practical, sensible, in my opinion.
We like to think that they are.
There's no such thing in government stuff.
We're not an unreasonable group.
No, you're not, I think 10% is actually.
When Linda asked all of us to serve, the one question we all answered truthfully was, do you have common sense? Yes.
No, I think 10% is kind of well in my opinion, but, I mean, that would be the minimum. I'd like to see the 15.
Would be nice.
Yes.
Right.
It
So
would be
now that we've all got
appropriate.
a number in our head, now let's start to go, if we want to go through questions on, so the next thing I had is policies and procedures for legal funds, budgeting and expenditures. And you saw, I believe, I don't know whether the Board of Selectmen got Jim Cosgrove's, okay, so it did get forwarded to you. I did forward it to the members here, right? I had questions, right, on who can, who can't, and how should, all right? And it was partly out of your meeting that I watched, the August 27th meeting, where he kind of gave that little dissertation about, right? I wanted to see it in writing, right? Because I can't bring a video with me, but I can bring his writing. And it basically said, only, you saw it, Nancy, okay? Only the Board of Selectmen can sign a legal contract for legal services.
Yeah.
That's what I got, right? Only you can authorize the monies, right? That's the way I get out, that's what I get out of it. Is that what the rest of you, who have seen the movie, get out of it, okay? If we all agree on that, now we can look at these warrant articles, how we gonna, what are we gonna fund and where are we gonna fund it, all right? We've got one legal account called town council. We funded with $100,000 at the beginning of the year. I would like to see whatever other monies we want to take out of the free cash, or the actually comes out of stabilization, because we've already moved it into stabilization before we even look at those warrant articles,
You
right?
can use the free cash is not in stabilization. So if you end up reducing some of your free cash,
Yeah, I like the way you got it set up. We move it into stabilization, and then, because then it's only the voters it's only the town meeting that can move it out of stabilization, right? I'd rather see it go into stabilization, let them decide how much comes out.
But one takes it, majority, one is 2/3, is that?
Two-thirds take out around majority to put in.
So if we've got this one line item that says town council with 100,000, let's look at some of these other requests for legal services and just add to that, and just put it all into that town council, all right, and build it up to whatever we all feel we're gonna need after our discussion here. Okay? That, I think, is the goal. That sounds like a logical way to do it, rather than a new account number or.
So I have, just to throw out, there's, I believe there were 3 different things listed. I would want to know, is your intent to have a carry forward article that doesn't close out on June 30th and that will just carry over? Or is the intent to put it in the FY20 operating budget into legal, which would then close June 30th? So that would be, and do you want, I would think that you would want, like you said, into one and then have them allocate how they wanted it to be, but they could still do that even with it being an article. I just need to know the thought process. Do you want to close out June 30th or just keep carrying over because these projects may go beyond a year?
Explain to me the carry over, how that would work. Because
So-
I thought that we could always go back and, can we pay old bills in the following year?
If you funded up 200,000, say, and you only spent 150 of it by June 30th, if it's in a carry forward article, that 50,000 carries over and you can have bills in next fiscal year coming out of that. If you do it as an operating budget like the town council is now, it closes June 30th, and the only thing you could possibly carry over is if you had a bill pending from FY20, and you would encumber it.
That's a better, to me, that's a better way to do it.
But carrying it over
No,
or closing
no,
it out?
Closing it out, because then it's always gotta be in our face, right?
Correct, it starts over.
Reallocate.
But, Mr. Chair, you're artificially increasing your operating budget for one-time expenditures, because these aren't going to be recurring legal fees over the next, say, 5 years. So the one nice thing about keeping it separate is you have your typical $100,000 that you've had for the last 10 or 15 years as adequate under a normal year for your typical legal expenses that you can continue to use. And because we have extenuating circumstances with whatever the next 3 articles are on an individual basis, let the voters decide to fund that, and like Donna said, if it does take more than this one fiscal year to work through those issues, those funds stay there and they don't have to be revoted at next year's town meeting with unknown information.
The other thing to keep in mind, if you do it as that carry forward article, so it stays open, and you took it from stabilization, when you finally decide that you're done and you want to close whatever's remaining, now those funds would go back into stabilization. If you do it as a blended in, mixed in with the operating budget, I can't decide between the two, so it has to close out and become part of free cash. So you've actually moved money out of, say, stabilization that will become part of free cash. Not an issue because you put money in free cash, but just know the mechanics behind it.
The issue that I would have with having a separate line item, let's say, for that kind of, is it kind of broadcasts to everybody, this is what's available for this, okay?
Thank you.
And I'm against that. Where if we have town council, and right now, we know we've got some extenuating circumstances between now and the end of the fiscal year, let's fund that town council line, right? and it can be used for whatever we need in legal services. I want two things. One, I want to make sure that it's accountable right up front, and two, it's got to pass through the Board of Selectmen, okay? It's not that the LNG committee can sign the check, or the planning board can sign the check, or any other group can sign the check. It's got to go through the Board of Selectmen.
Understood.
Yeah.
And either way, that process takes place, no matter how you set up the funds.
But you set an expectation, if you vote at a town meeting to put $300,000 into a particular line item, then the expectation of those voters is that that money is for that. And so if the selectmen now decide they don't want to spend the money on that, then you now have a battle going on with the town meeting, because they voted to put the money in there. So I grant you that they have to have that authority, but you also now have a bit of a conflict there, because the board is now saying, yeah, we don't care what you did at town meeting, we're not gonna do that. And that gets into a pretty nasty gray area.
The other thing that I don't want to see us do is have this, well, they got that much money for legal, how come we only got this much money? Okay? We have legal expenses, Rob.
I think it's similar to contract obligations. When we do contract obligations, we spend down. When we get to the special town meeting, we take a look at what do we know we have coming. Do we have a union that's going to settle? Do we have somebody retiring? What are the amounts of money that we anticipate we're going to need for the next 6 months? And then we'll add more into that. I think that if you look at your legal the same way, and you kind of estimate, you can put it without describing or what's there, and then you can make that decision, because quite often the legal things that you want to do change so quickly. It's very variable. So I would recommend, I actually agree with you, and I would recommend that you consider just adding into the town council.
You agree with me on this, or you disagreed with me on everything else?
This one I would agree, that you put it in May, you take a look at what you have coming down the road, and you make an educated guess. And we have actually done that before, increased the budget for a short period of time, maybe 3 years, and then pulled it back when we realized that we had 3 years we'd lose.
Because I think based on 8, 9, 10, to your point, Peter, these are abnormal times that we're dealing with. But we do need an increase in legal funding to compensate for it. And I don't necessarily agree with breaking the, I think there's maybe consensus, I could be wrong, that we don't want to break it out. What I think I'm hearing is that we just want to increase the line or something to say, instead of X, you now have Y. But it's up to the Board of Selectmen to decide how that Y is distributed amongst whatever legal issues that may be coming. So I think it just behooves us to make sure that we come up with a good estimate.
And just for the record, I'm going to disagree with something you said at your meeting, okay? That you made the comment to the point of, well, we're not lawyers, we don't know what, and I think you used planning board as an example, we don't know what their issue are, so they should. You're the Board of Selectmen. Sorry, it stops with you.
I'll agree.
So the money's in your pocket. You sign the contract. I expect you to know what's in whoever contract. Right? But there was something I just wanted to let you know that I did disagree with that one point.
I think the key is really around legal strategy, though. I mean, the idea being that I don't have my JD.
Yeah.
So VGG is a great example of where do you go with it? Meaning, I don't know the nuances of case law to be able to make that determination. So generally speaking, I would say, all right, well, what do the lawyers feel? Right. And because of which, okay.
And that's where you've got Jim, and I think the more I interact with Jim, the more brilliant I think the guy is. Wordy, but brilliant. He just seems to know his stuff. And that's you've got him right there.
So I had brought it up earlier, I know you're probably going to talk about it later, just more of a technical thing. If I have money that's in town council, that's for legal expenses, not for consulting, and a lot of this is for both, so if you're going to put money in and you want also consulting, then the contract obligations is the area for the consulting. Now, I could pay legal out of contract obligations and consulting, but I can only pay legal out of town council. So just a mechanism on that.
Okay, so following up on what Don is saying, we did have a finance team meeting today and recognized that we may need funding for consultants. And at some point, we want to have a conversation with you and see if you would amend your 50,000 vote for the reserve fund and make that consultant, or put that into contract obligations so that they can have a balance. We're finding that some of the legal pieces need a little of both.
So if a lawyer hires a consultant to do something on their behalf and he bills the town,
I'm paying a legal bill, so it's,
that's a legal bill.
right.
But if the town goes and hires the
Kind
same
of bond or-
expertise,
yeah.
then it's consultant.
And it saves money.
Are you saying we don't have enough in contract obligations now to do that kind of
You
consulting?
can't, no. And that's why I asked you to change that. What I asked
this-
for
right, this-
the
this one,
change
right.
was to move the 50,000 that was transferred to town council at the request of the selectmen to instead amend it to transfer to contract obligations so that you could hire directly
Got
the
it.
consultants.
And then it
like
goes
who
through
you
the
want.
attorney.
Right.
That makes sense. That's
Chair,
cost effective.
Does that change who can sign that contract?
Well, it's still in the Board of Selectmen, so that's still their jurisdiction, that's their budget, so I still think that the board needs to be.
So, Mr. Chairman, so is the key really still being that we just want to come up with a number and move
Right.
to someplace,
Right.
but
Now that we've
maybe
all
it's not
agreed
legal
that
though?
where we're gonna put it, we're gonna put it in the town council
Well,
account.
are we though? Because I thought what Donna just said is
Well,
that
that's,
we may want to move some to contractual obligations.
So what we're recommending at this time is you have, for one of your legal pieces, you appropriated 50,000 and 50,000, both towards legal. We're recommending that you take 50,000 of that, and we're suggesting that they amend theirs and put that
We've got
into
it.
contract.
All right, and you guys are good with that?
Yeah.
With
All
the
right.
understanding that it'll be 50-50 there. Now, you still are needing to add additional funding to your contract obligations
Right.
because of potential retirements or other things,
sure.
and issues that come up, or other contracts that you need to fulfill.
But not
But this would be just.
the 8, 9, 10 issue here, like Articles
Right.
8, 9, 10. That
That would be-
would still go into legal because we wouldn't need additional funds into
Correct.
contractual obligations based upon the 50 transfer.
Well, you have 15 in there already. I would suggest you thinking about another thing.
So if I'm reading right, you want, if I'm understanding what you're saying, you want to take 8, 9, and you want to keep 10 separate?
I would.
So 8, 9, and 10 off and just be transferred to and from stabilization, just one of the.
correct.
Yes.
Yep.
And then that way, if you knew closer, if you needed more in contract obligations versus town council, you could make a change in the motion.
Not to stabilization, but to,
Right.
from
Stabilization
Yes.
to contract obligations
right.
for town council,
Yep.
you would know how much you needed closer.
So that's the framework of what we wanna do. Now what we have to do is what's the number? Okay?
Yeah.
So,
That's a $64 million question, literally.
right, so if we look at it, right?
Thank you.
So now if we go to my agenda number 11, right, that is review these articles. And let's just take it right in that order, 8, 9, 10, and 11, which is a new one to me. I want to hear about that one too. Departmental survey, right? Here's where my stabilization. All right, so how do we want to do this with number 8? Okay, so now we've got this LNG, and this calls for a sum of money. Welcome back, Pete. I appreciate it.
That's zero, as well as Rob. But, so the LNG committee had a meeting last night, and they voted to hire Copeland and Page, and also to hire a consultant to review safety analysis that was presented from NEC to the site board. That's happening under the initial $100,000 that you have presented. Until we get information back from the site, from the consultant, to determine whether or not NEC's application information submittals, their modeling, safety information, traffic study, if they're in agreement with it, we really won't know how much we're gonna need to ask for to move forward. So a lot's gonna depend on what we get back for information from them. And talking to Frank today, the chairman of the committee, he just asked that we relay that information, asked that we have the ability to possibly ask for more money once we get that information, come up with a strategy and move forward.
The additional funds that you might need are sometime, you guess, between now and end of fiscal year?
Yes, because, well, definitely, because we have to present to the siting board by, I believe, October 16th. So we're.
But what I'm saying, how much, you're gonna, you plan on expending the whole 100 that you've got now?
We'll go very quickly, yes.
We'll go very quickly?
To get the information we need, yeah, without going into strategy, yes.
Okay.
It could very well cost much more, depending upon what it's about.
Through the chair. I thought it was 130,000.
You have limited it to 100 because that's what you have.
Okay.
You do not have the 30,000.
So we haven't gotten, are we going to be getting the 30,000?
It has been promised and we are negotiating.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Right.
We gave 50, you gave 50.
Yeah.
But I have actually contacted them and changed and asked them to fund the full 130 that the Board of Selectmen has done. But we won't know that until we get a little bit closer.
So, clarifying question if I may, Mr. Chair. Peter, you said some's gonna go to legal now, some's gonna go to consulting, and the likelihood of the next step would be some to legal and some to consulting?
Correct, because those consultants are gonna have to show up, and depending on the avenue that we go, they may have to show up and testify in front of the siting board. They may have to do more work, more modeling, hire more consultants, depending on what we get for information.
So that would say.
And that's
put some money in
that's why
more
we're
money
asking
in
you to
contract.
do that. It is those 250,000s that we're looking at.
No, that's not what I asked. The 250,000, the 100, gonna go fast. That's what I heard. Additional funding needs to go in both places.
We'll need funding for both, yes.
Going forward. So we can't just put it all in town council, we have to put something in contract obligations as well. For that,
This particular issue. Put a number on the table. Someone's gotta put a number on the table. We can't just sit here and say, yeah, we're gonna give you a blank check. That's the problem.
So there's a
up to this
number in
point.
front of you that's consistent with the previous attorney said it would take us to go the full 9 rounds.
He gave you a number of about 300, if I remember.
So with the 100 already, and with the 200 that's in front of you right now, then possibly if the committee wanted to go that way and the board of selectmen supported it, then that could be what it could possibly cost.
And 200, to Joe's point, would have to be split between two.
Somehow, yes, because we would need both at that time. We still need legal and we would still need consultants.
If I note down that you've said it 3 times, but I'm not going to repeat it once more. If we put it all in contract obligations and you had to pay a legal bill out of it, you could do that. So that's one where I think you err on the side of
Just put it all in there.
contract obligations versus trying to split the baby there. It may not work.
Possibly.
Right.
I don't think we, as a town, we want to shortchange this one, because this could be something that we're going to live with for a long time, so we want to make sure it's done right. So that's why the 200, Pete, if that's what you're recommending, I think that's a good idea.
Well, again, I think that's what was carried forward. I know the committee didn't necessarily vote on it.
Oh, sorry.
Through the chair,
Yes.
the reason why we didn't go with the original consultant that specializes in this area was because we couldn't come up with that whole 300. So I was under the assumption that the reason why I went with KP because they could do it for the 130 in total. So I guess I'm a little confused that the Board of Selectmen voted to not hire the original attorney, and then we lost like 10 days, and we have another attorney, and we're going to pay the same thing that they were asking.
Through the chair, I don't think we ever voted to not hire him. We
To
never
not
took a
fund
vote.
him, I'm sorry, to not.
No, I don't
No.
think we ever took a vote to not fund him either. I don't recall that at the meeting.
He decided that, again, I don't know, a lot of this was his strategy and his discussing
We can
executive
discuss
session.
that
so-
at LNG.
But I don't believe, I believe the selectmen authorized the vote that the LNG committee voted, and the attorney didn't want to work for that amount, and he
For
just.
130,
Correct.
because he wanted 300, but now we're at 300.
He knew this was coming. He knew this was gonna be proposed, and he didn't want to wait with the unknowns. It was his decision not to be here, not that he wanted to stay.
We couldn't promise probably the nice thing to the chair, it's, the Board of Selectmen, and again, please correct me, could not promise that we could get the additional 200, because this is going to town meeting. And that was the real issue, that we could say, look, we're guaranteed 130, come back with whatever you come back with, and then that will help make the case or not for a number in town meeting. That is a very stratospheric summary, but for all intents and purposes, I think that was Pete, correct me.
No,
And that's the same impression I got.
You said it.
I was at that meeting. Unless he knew right then and there that he was getting his 300,000, he was not gonna be happy. And you're right, all we could give him was the 100, and you go get the 30 from, and it's it.
And through the chair, even though we're tossing around that number right now, that doesn't mean we're gonna spend that amount. Hopefully, there will be some kind of cost savings involved, but we just wanna make sure we have enough and the number's high enough so we
Correct.
one shot at this right now.
We're at least asking for it. Town meeting could, and I think that's the gist of this, is that town meeting could still say no.
Yeah,
It's true.
Yeah.
but I'm just gonna
So
throw
it's good
in
we're
that
unified.
you do have a bill pending for services rendered.
Correct, from the previous attorney.
Correct. So
But
that would
he's-
reduce the amount that you have available.
Correct, but he also forwarded that work over to the new attorney, so they have a head start. They're not starting from scratch. So that's important to point out as well. Because any work he did, he turned over to Katie.
But we do have to pay the bill.
We're reviewing the bill.
All right, then Donovan, I'm gonna change the opinion I had earlier, that there'd be one warrant article for legal fees to go in, right? Now I'm more of the mindset that if we're gonna talk about that kind of money for this one particular, it have its own warrant article so that they can vote on it, the town meeting can vote on it. You don't think that's a?
I don't think that you're there yet. I don't think that you can honestly say you're at 300,000. You know, and it's difficult to do strategy at this point, but my understanding is that what the committee has prioritized, that will be able to be done within the funding that we already have presently. I think what Peter's saying is, if they're going to not be able to come to an agreement by the mid-October, and if they want to put a full-on legal issue, that's a whole nother thing, and that might be a separate town meeting just to start talking about that.
I guess what I'd ask is that you keep the article there, we don't put a dollar figure in it, and we submit the motion when we have more information, and we hear back from the consultant, and we know how much we really need to ask for.
Here's the danger of that, though. We're basically abdicating responsibility to town meeting to make legal decisions. Because that then becomes a very slippery slope of whether it's planning board, whether it's sewer, water, like regardless, that could very easily, and I mean this nicely, be manipulated by special interests to come in and say, I don't think, or I do think we should fight this or not fight this. And we're going to control the budget, and that's going to dictate strategy.
De facto.
Yeah.
Yes, I through the chair again, I like having everything combined per council's
Yeah.
recommendation. I understand where you're coming from, and I do
Yeah.
want to say thank you for being proactive in getting his opinion. I think that was a good idea. Thank
So I
you.
guess-
But, yeah, I'd keep them together.
So,
You also want to remember that it takes 14 days to go back to another town meeting if you need it. It's not a whole full-blown election. You can pull up the town meeting quickly if you find that your strategy is going to need additional funding.
yeah, and then we're gonna be faced with we need another $4,000 to run a town meeting, or whatever bill we get, the 8,000 for that. So but so to your point though, Karen, so you're saying, let's say we would take all three of these, we're gonna say, and I'm just shooting numbers up, so 200 for this one, 100 for BGG, and 100 for Millennium. $400,000. We're gonna have what, one warrant article that says move $400,000 into, and your suggestion is contract services. One article that says 400.
That would be my recommendation, because then it provides, I'm sorry,
No.
no, it's my fault.
No, actually, all the reasons stated by everyone here
Okay.
tonight, it makes sense. And because the situation, anything to do with legal is so fluid, you know, it allows the people in the trenches, the people in charge of the first strings, that all of us who know what's going on, to move money around as needed, because the situation's changed so quickly. So to me, it just makes sense to do it that way. And again, it's disingenuous almost to keep them pulled out because of the expectation that sets with the residents by voting on that article.
I think it allows us more flexibility. For example, let's say that LNG, for whatever reason, comes in much, much cheaper. And let's say Millennium or VGG would cost more. It allows the Board of Selectmen to be able to, would be our vote, obviously, to decide to move that money. But I think if we're upfront with residents saying, look, there are 3 significant projects that we need to deal with. We don't know for sure what they're gonna cost. We think this number will carry them all 3 through.
All right, see, that at least eases my mind a little bit, because if you assigned a number, again, I could conceive, and it was just one warrant article, I could see somebody saying, you know what, I believe in Millennium, I believe in LNG, but I don't believe in the VGG.
Correct.
I'm gonna vote no on the article, and now we lost all of our money.
Correct.
Okay? That's the risk we run by
It is a-
having one.
Agreed.
Through the chair. You know how I feel about this. I play my cards close to the vest. And I don't want these numbers to be broadcast, because then it lets the opposition know just how much we have to spend. And it also lets a possible attorney know how much they stand to earn from the town. It's legal strategy. I don't want to give it away. That's just my feeling.
Okay. So we're back to coming up with the dollar value, right? He's given us what he feels is what LNG is going to need, and I'm going to pin you to 200,000, is what you're saying?
Probably safe.
Sorry. Depending on the strategy and what we get for information.
Right, that's Article 8. Article 9 is VGG. And we've got appropriate a sum of money. Right? What is the sum of money? What do we need?
I would, through the chair, I would be hard pressed to see us spending $250,000 in 6 months.
On anything.
I really would. Certainly it's possible, it's within the realm of possibility. But it'd be pretty shocking.
To spend $250,000 on all 3 of these combined?
No, on just Article 9. Just Article 9, sorry.
I would defer to, through the chair?
Yes.
I would defer to.
I have no clue whatsoever where that 250 came from. I love it.
You do your master plan.
Great. You can get sidewalks done. So that's a number that somehow made it in there. We're asking for 50,000 to complete our subdivision. I'm not asking for anything else for the site plan. So,
You're saying, Patrick, 50,000 just for this one project?
the subdivision,
Yeah.
to finish any legal, and that's conservative. I don't think we'll get through all of that, but looking at what we've spent, speaking to McCabe, and this is the full trial process with this subdivision. It's a full trial, so it's supposed to be depositions and stuff, so that's why that number is there. We made a decision, and then we were challenged, and we're just defending our decision. I'm not asking you to pay for whether we vote to appeal the judge's decision on the site plan or not. I'm not asking for that at this point. I'm only asking for the funding to continue the court case on the subdivision, because we made a decision and our decision was challenged by the applicant, and we just want to defend our decision.
On the subdivision.
On the subdivision, not on the site.
So you need 50. Right. Sound good?
And through the chair. Does Attorney McKay also think that 50,000 will be sufficient?
He did not give us a written estimate. It was part of the discussion, and I put the number out there, and we think that will cover that.
So you spent already about 17 from FY '19. We gave you another 17 for FY '20, so this would be 50 in addition to that?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And just to, the only 17 actually went to legal. The half of that is consultants. Just because on the subdivision, we didn't have a traffic study. It was something we should have done. It just didn't happen, so we needed to fund that.
All right, so 50 is on the table for Article 9.
Instead of
Anybody want to weigh in? Anybody weigh in on that?
We'll just
I
cross the two
thought,
out.
I thought you were going to remove Article 10, Article 9.
I think we are, we're just.
We are.
You are, you're just trying to get.
I just want, what's the dollar value that's going to be
That
associated with the...
is needed in the next 6 months.
So our running total is 250 so far.
Okay.
The running total right now is, right.
Fiscal year.
230.
Yeah.
Just 6 months.
So we have 250, and then whatever.
And now we've got
Millennium.
Article 10, Millennium. And I have no idea what...
Where are you at now?
Article 10.
I know, what, 250?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think if you go to 75 for the next 6 months, we should be okay. For all three. We're s-
Add another 75.
No, 25.
25. So 275, I'm sorry. When you said 75,000, I'm saying, now that's...
Is that good enough?
275 for all
275.
three gets us through the end of fiscal year.
If they have the ability to move things around, I think that would be enough.
I think we're tight on that. Through the chair. Hey, Robin, I know we covered it, it makes a lot of sense. I'm going mostly back to LNG, and then depending upon what happens, I think we need some flexibility in here. I feel, it's only an additional 25K, but I'd feel a lot more comfortable asking for three for all of them,
300.
instead of 275, just in case we do need to start moving money around. Yeah,
I
exactly.
was being conservative.
A cushion.
Oh, yeah, whichever. No, that's why I say I appreciate it. It just, because these projects are so bizarre, that I would much rather ask for a little more. And then honestly, if we don't spend it, it goes back to stabilization anyway. Right, so, anyway, my recommendation would be 3, so just 3 total for all 3.
So,
It only goes back to stabilization if you make this a carry forward article.
Yes, which I think we need to discuss. Because if not, it goes back to free cash.
If
goes
you,
back to stay, I get
if
Yeah.
you transfer it into an
stabilization
operating
versus
budget.
free cash.
Although in May, we'd be able to transfer it over into another account.
Right.
Financial, so you could carry it somewhere.
Explain that one again, Robin.
You could actually
Yeah.
move it.
In May, if you knew you had excess.
Right, okay. So I think we do 3 and potentially, knowing that we have the ability, especially at town meeting, to move that money back over. Again, for me, 1 out of 5, 3 tonight, that I think 3 is better.
So the number is 300,000 with no value associated with any one project.
Correct.
Yep, we started taking.
Except the fact that we're being televised, beyond that.
And the newspaper report.
Yeah, thank you, sorry.
Always will self-destruct
So we're gonna talk about different numbers now.
Again, you can
I think the point is that you can move.
When I said no particular value, it just meant that we're gonna combine and have one warrant item.
Yes,
With the warrant.
and people will trust, no, one number, right?
No, 2. 1 goes to contract obligation.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yep.
yeah.
1 goes to legal.
Yep.
I thought they were both going to contract obligations. I'm sorry.
Could move it all to contract
Yeah, that's what I was
obligations.
thinking to make life a little easier, so that we don't have to guess and then move it later. Because if we move everything to CO, it allows us the flexibility to do both
consultants
Both
and
attorneys.
attorneys.
Both
Yes.
consultants and attorneys.
I know what you're thinking,
But the
okay.
or you do an article that says for consulting and legal fees, additional consulting and legal fees, and it stays as that segregated article that goes back out to stabilization or something. Your two options.
It carries forward, so
Would carry
if this,
forward.
if this isn't done by the end of the fiscal year, that money to handle these additional 3 or whatever comes up for above and beyond your annual operating and recurring legal expenses comes out of this one pot. And as Donna said, once everything is closed out, when you close that out, it goes right back to stabilization with no vote of the town.
The risk at leaving it in an operating budget for something like this that may go beyond a fiscal year is you will have already obligated by signing a contract with somebody and don't have any ability to pay the bill if it's a bill that was actually incurred in the next fiscal year, unless you do it as that carry forward article.
If you have a contract, you can encumber the amount of the
Not,
contract.
well, not for the, if the services did not take place in that year, you can't.
Right, you can't
Only
forecast
if
what's
it's a
going
carry
forward.
forward.
Can't encumber future.
So I think what I'm hearing is that we want to have a carryover article, have 300K, and maybe the recommendation is to put it all in contractual obligations.
You can call it whatever you want. If you want to say consulting and legal, additional consulting and legal services.
It's becoming a capital, so it's not going into a line item.
Right. Does that work?
Works.
Yeah. I can live with that number.
Who says we're
So
finance
let me
geeks?
just, can I recap, because I'm kind of changing these things?
And we have to close this tonight, right, Rob?
I think you would be well off to close it tonight, so that we can make sure we've got everything ready for you. Because we've got motions for the next one, and if we've got new articles coming in, it will be difficult. So yes, thank you. So Article 8 will be removed, Article 9 will be removed, Article 10 will be removed. I will put a separate warrant article for legal and consulting for $300,000. And then you can have that full conversation.
And if something changes before now in town meeting, that amount can be amended, either
Yeah.
up or down, based on.
Yes, I'm not gonna put the amount.
Based on the more current.
Yep.
So, while we're still on warrant articles, I am curious as to what warrant article number 11 is. Interdepartmental study for $50,000. Yes, that's, I wasn't looking at you, Ron, I was
Who wants to
looking
take this one?
And David Singer isn't here tonight.
What is it?
You can take it, because you
I
I mean,
believe, I believe this is the study that Chairman Singer wanted to do, to take a look at the internal functioning of the town hall between departments, and to see how we could better communicate, streamline, become more efficient, facilitate better communication.
Where did he find $50,000?
Originally, you know, you'd have to ask him that.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Originally, he thought it would be similar to a audit that they did on a possible illegal sewer line. To have that kind of forensic study done was about $10,000. That's what he thought it would be. When they went out to look for someone that could come in and do this type of work, the proposal came back more around $50,000. Mr. Singer did say to me that he wanted the town meeting to vote whether or not they thought it was important to spend that kind of money on that project.
It basically puts the decision back in the hands of the voters to say, is it worth $50,000 to a town meeting voter to do a study, analysis, et cetera, around town hall and its behaviors, and are there ways to improve it? But again, instead of the board making that decision, it was, all right, town meeting, how do you feel about this? So that's about, that's for, yeah, Deb, you did a good job summarizing.
Thank you very much, and through the chair, I'm sure that Chairman Singer will be able to speak to this at town meeting.
It was just a surprise
No,
to
that's
me,
fine.
and, you know, it wasn't $5,000.
Yeah.
If I may, through the chair, I just wanted to add my 2 cents. I support what Chairman Singer's trying to do. One of the things I had looked at, because our goals and objectives are coming up soon, is I personally would like to see something like that. If it doesn't happen now, in the future, but increase the scope. Other towns have done what's called a process audit, and they have people come in and they talk to department heads, you know, employees, everyone, and they look at how efficient you are. I think, and again, I'm doing this from memory, so I'm probably gonna get it wrong, but I think it was Waltham, or if you Google process audit for towns, you'll see a number of them come up, and they're online, and they really help. They tell you where, you know, give you suggestions of, again, how to save money through being more efficient, even where different departments should be set up because of their experience. Anyway, I encourage you all to look at that and give some thought to that, because I do think there's a significant cost savings that we could get if we did something like that, but I have a feeling that would cost a lot more than $50,000, but it's cost benefit, you know, so just look into that and let me know your thoughts.
All right, it on the articles, the other article that you want to go through. It's all the money articles. What else do you want?
Do you want to start from the top and just?
So now it's part of your closing the warrant, right? Your meeting?
Yeah, well, we already number
There's
5 is
still
on
more.
here.
There's still more.
It's more, plus I thought we started out this meeting by discussing keeping the stabilization fund whole, which we haven't done.
Right, so what
So
we've
we're
done,
about 220K light at this point.
is that,
On keeping
so
the
you've
fund.
been keeping
So you
the
removed
running total?
400,000. You added 400,000 back.
Right, which brings us up to 9, which does not bring us back to where we were. Right. Where we were was 1.1. Right, we were at 9, so we're about 200,000 short of the stabilization.
Right. Of not impacting it at all, not necessarily the goal. But if the goal is to keep it, hold it harmless, we missed.
Yeah. I'm just looking at what other warrant item can we touch that, or discuss that would have any effect on stabilization, other than to go back and,
Well, we could, just as a suggestion,
Yeah.
we could remove 3 cruisers and only fund 2. We could look at maybe deferring other things that are in here right now. Certain options.
You're right, now's the time to do
If
it.
we don't do it now, we're not gonna do it.
You have Article 5 that was also getting against the stabilization.
Article 5 is the Maynard Fields improvement.
Yes.
Which we need to do, and Lucas is here to speak.
Yes, Luke can speak to that one.
Thanks for having me tonight, great to see everyone. Just, first of all, I can't speak to the specifics. Todd Gerard has been a great help in his office, and Robin as well, Andy and Donna, we're putting this together. It's pretty much a straightforward article where, back in 2017 or early 18, we were hit with American Disability Act violations at Maynard Field, Lower Maynard Field specifically. With the snack shack, the counter was too high or not accessible. Height needs to be lowered on that. Then you have the bleachers, the main bleachers themselves along the sidelines. There is no wheelchair accessible ramp, so we're looking to add that as well. We're also looking to do a resurfacing of the lower parking lot as well, because folks with disabilities and accessibility issues have been having a difficult time navigating that as well, from what we have heard. So, and this is a mandate by the state. We're not looking to do this by ourselves. I mean, this is something we were told by the state to do. We have been compliant. We have been giving the state ADA work constant updates throughout the project. We have contracted Burton Engineering to give us a preliminary plan. A copy of the plan is up in Todd's office. If any of you are interested in viewing the plan, it's up on Rose Conway's desk. If any of you are interested as well. So I'll do my best to answer any questions you folks have.
Yeah, this isn't a want, this is a need. I mean, this
is something mandated by the
regulatory
state, and
compliance, yeah, so.
to put it nicely, the state would not like it if it wasn't done. we've been in compliance, the state's fine with everything going on currently. They're fine, we know it's being put on this fall town meeting warrant, hopefully. And after it's hopefully passed at town meeting, we'll go to them and be like, okay, we have passed this article at town meeting with funding. And it's that process, just keeping them in the loop and up to date as the project moves forward. So as of right now, we're in compliance, everyone's in the loop, we're on board, so.
Yeah, I think we have to do this.
Yeah, it's one of those bureaucracy, red tape things, you know. It's a good thing to do, you know, folks with disability issues are having a difficult time down there. So I think it's a right thing to do, but at the same time, it is a mandated thing to do, so.
Yes.
It's an expensive mandate, but
It is what it is.
It's an unfunded mandate.
Shocker.
It is.
Yeah.
But no,
So-
you're right, we have to be inclusive.
What's the breakdown of the spend?
So, in my, in Todd's office, there are those items available. Off the top of my head, I can tell you that the ramp was about $21,000 off the top of my head.
I'm just gonna assume the parking lot's probably the most expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The snack shack itself is the least expensive portion.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing, what I know is not gonna cost $150,000. Obviously, we're gonna have contingencies in there, labor costs as well. Anything that is not used, we'll go back to stabilization, free cash, and obviously that's at your discretion how we can convert any unused back, of course, at your discretion.
So I'm wondering a practicality question. If you were to get this at special town meeting, which is October 8th, what's the likelihood the parking lot can get done this year?
It would probably be done in the spring, most likely because we would then have to notify the state, go back to Burton Engineering, and then probably put out the request for bids. I'm assuming because, you know, obviously I'm not.
Initial design and bidding.
Not the expert on procurement, but we would have to put out the request for bids. And
So,
Don't feel bad, no.
Are you gonna pave it? Is that the goal?
that would be nice. We have discussed different options with Todd. The drainage too is an issue that's being put into the engineering. Todd, of course, is conservation. He's our conservation agent, so he has taken the point again with drainage, any conservation issues. So we'll be working with him with that, with any drainage issues and with Burton Engineering as well. Another holdup has been, you know, with just Burton Engineering, you know, just they've had a staff change there, so that delayed things a couple of months. Our main lead project engineer on that, he left the firm and it was reassigned. Still at Burton Engineering, but it was just reassigned to a new engineer, so he was caught up to speed and everything. So I would like to have this done next spring and get like the groundbreaking for this next spring.
Through the chair, how many parking spots will be paved?
So that's another issue. I mean, it's not, we've done the best we can with like the upper lot and even the lower lot with assigning spaces. The issue is the main lower lot where our handicap spaces are. They're not technically handicap accessible at this time, you know, the way the servicing is on that lower lot. So that's one of the biggest issues when it comes to that our current violations. That's what was highlighted the most from my understanding. You know, we have the handicap signs there, but they're not technically handicap accessible with the way the servicing is and the way the entrance is.
So if you were trying to economize, you could really satisfy the state by just asphalting the areas for the handicap and the walkway to the actual bleachers that we're doing.
Yeah, that's certainly a good idea we're open to.
Again, depending on what the budget is, and if you're trying to cut corners and save money and be able to satisfy any violations that you receive from the state.
Absolutely.
Because thereafter, it can be a dirt lot for the remaining people, and also would mean a lot less drainage. Again, depending on the budget, maybe that's what you got to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, if anyone's interested, I can get into Todd's office. I can go into Todd's office and get copies of the plans for you folks if anyone's interested. It's just the preliminary plans from Burton Engineering, but they're in there. We have those on file. We're definitely willing to cut corners and still be compliant any way we can. Obviously, we're more than open to saving money. We're trying to cut costs for our porta potties down at the baseball and softball fields. So obviously we're willing to cut corners any way we can. Of course, while still being nice.
Chair?
Yes.
Luke, I'm wondering, Robin Karen is acting chair, would it be worth it to come to our next BOS meeting and present it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, just so everyone knows what it is you're trying to do. I'm not trying to
Exactly.
put you on the spot, I
So
just want to give you an option.
Todd's been a big
If
help.
you're good with that.
Todd's been a big help. Like I said, I'm not an engineer. I'm not a drainage expert. Todd has taken the lead on it, and he's honestly been the biggest help with it. I asked him to come to our Recreation Commission meeting last night. He hasn't gotten back to me. Obviously he's out in the field a lot. Oh, he's out this week? That's why. So we had a meeting last night. I invited him to come out, so I can definitely talk to him again, touch base, and have him come to the next BOS meeting as well.
APAP is installing handicap ramps all over its 10 towns. If that can save you 21,000, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
That's saving us money, I like it.
That's what we're here for. We're here
I
for
cover
input.
APAP and I hear over and over and over and over they're installing handicap ramps for all kinds of towns and businesses and homes. Might be an option.
Absolutely. Thanks, Deb.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great idea.
Now I can renew my teaching subscription.
All right, so what I'm hearing is that this is not a place to be looking to cut $175,000.
We should probably ask for 170, but if we can find a better plan.
You can also
Absolutely.
borrow if you wanted and bundle this in with the fire truck for borrowing. Need two separate votes, but when they go to borrow, they can put them together.
That's a good idea.
So it doesn't have to be taken as stabilization?
No, we're putting
Correct.
170 back to stabilization.
Well, and
Well, you pay now or pay later.
but through the
What
chair,
expense?
the finance, Donna, you had mentioned you wanted to increase that number, you wanted to borrow
Yeah.
more, so it serves a dual purpose, so, very good.
Up to your discretion. I mean, I feel bad taking out money out of stabilization as it is. I mean,
No, this
especially.
is a requirement.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we can do it no
And,
matter what.
You know, we want to be an inclusive community. It's very important.
Our operating budget per year is $16,000, so obviously this is a lot of money to us.
And it's only an incremental 170, so even the interest expense won't be insane.
No, I said 2%.
1.75, 3.
So we go from 603, whatever it was, to 770.
Oh, for the borrowing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
That's a really good idea.
Get off the credit card.
Give out the credit card.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
but
you're right.
Not good.
No, you're
Not good.
That we gotta find, and we've already found another 20. Sanitary's 30, and that's
Did
coming
you
on.
say police cruisers 2 or 3?
No, not
Yeah.
yet.
Touch that.
Not yet.
So how does that
Listing off
borrowing
stuff, I'm trying to.
affect your annual operating budget? And how is that gonna trickle down? You said the fire truck is gonna be 70,000 a year.
Yeah.
So if you add this, it'll probably be another 20 or 25, so you're gonna be up to almost 100,000 a year that you have to come up with on your annual operating budget. Which, when we're going into budget season, and you look at what department heads are requesting, you're not fully funding anyways. And you're gonna pull another 100,000 away from that, or from new growth next year. Where's the balance, just so we can keep a little bit extra in there? That's a tough balance, I guess.
No, Pete, I think you're right, because I think that's what we all struggle with, though. We need that stabilization fund up there for our bond rating and like everything else.
Yeah, see, there's more factors into having a good stabilization than, yeah. so
But you're right,
make
because
interest.
Rob, like you mentioned, we're basically putting it on a credit card. So that's the challenge of how do you deal with
But
it?
the reality of what I heard was, thank you, Dental Pocket, you could very well get that ramp for nothing. You're not likely to spend a nickel before the spring, because you're gonna have to do some engineering. Yes, that's gonna cost some money, but you're not gonna pave anything in October or November, right? So we may decide at a future date that you have a separate funding mechanism. But today you'd be pulling it out of stabilization. October 8th, you'd be pulling it out of stabilization. And we may just find out that in May, we have a whole lot of money sitting in contract obligations.
That's the goal.
That would be great. So, Just because we think we're gonna borrow, it doesn't mean we have to.
No, as you see, there's an article on here that rescind the 500,000 on Potter Village, because
Yep.
I didn't need to borrow it, so, but we had got the obligation there in case we needed to. It was a grant, but we were crossing fiscal years, I wanted to be on the safe side. So we rescind that authorization, we didn't borrow it. Same thing would happen on this.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, sorry, I'm gonna take a left turn since Donna brought that up. I had taken a note, Donna, that you wanted that as a separate article,
The rescinding of,
The rescind.
yeah.
but it's still not.
No, it is on,
It is.
Article
on the revised one, there was
Okay.
Article 12.
So then you need to take it out of the table for another.
Yes, it would.
But it was not added at the bottom.
Right, it's not added.
It's not added
It
to
wasn't
the
added.
bottom line.
Yeah, no, I know.
I just kept that there for the sake of talking.
All right, so Joe's math is telling me we still gotta come up with $90,000 to maintain stabilization where it's at.
Again, David's not here, but we could kill off the request for the long-term study.
I'm tempted.
I mean, we could push it off till May.
We can push it off till
I
May.
understand. But when you say pushing it off to May, know that you're spending your free cash, it won't be available again until this time
Right.
next year.
Yes. But through the chair, if I had to choose between a police car or an interdepartmental study, I'm choosing a cruiser.
And I think it's a defendable conversation.
That's just, my 2 cents.
We have a consensus over here is what I'm hearing.
We do.
Yeah. Anything? Anybody here? Police car or interdepartmental study?
So you're taking
Police.
the 50,000 out.
50 out of the,
Did you remove Article 5, the fields for now?
that's basically what we're
And
doing.
then you're tasking them to go back and see if they can get some of this done by Bay Path.
And Article 5 is,
Article 5.
oh yeah, we're taking that out because we're not right. That's Article 5.
So question,
It's gonna be
have you
borrowing.
done the design yet?
The preliminary design plans are for Burton Engineering, are in Todd's office.
They are there?
Yeah, they're there.
Okay.
I can
I
get
was
you
just
a
trying to
copy.
think, is there
Yeah.
something you could fund that's smaller to at least let the state know we're moving forward?
Actual design. Because if they're paving, they're gonna have to do stormwater. You gotta burn, do the.
So
that
perhaps
was
you
it.
drop that 170 down to 30 so that they have some funding to be able to get ready for the spring, and then
Prepare-
they'll actually
prepare
bid
the
out, and then
documents.
they can come to the Maytown meeting
Yeah, I think-
with an accurate number.
If you did the bond authorization, that would give them,
If anything, voting to appropriate some funds would satisfy the state.
I thought you were removing it completely, or are you moving it to the bond authorization?
We're moving it to bond.
Oh, okay.
So what if we drop it to 50 for now to give you the remaining
Yeah,
engineering?
'cause we're gonna get authorization for a dollar value.
Right.
Right.
for a bond authorization,
Right, now
so it
whether
doesn't
it's
take it out of
now,
stabilization.
whether they have to draw down on it to pay something in advance.
They
I
can
think
do
is the
that,
question.
yes.
Right.
Okay, perfect, I thought you were taking it off.
We're within spitting distance.
But then they were gonna try to get
20,000.
Bay Path.
For 20,000 off?
And then they don't need it or get it down to fund, so it's like you said.
Well, the voting buttons are $20,000, guys. But, no, let me ask you this, what is this basement ceiling, is that this 25,000 for basement town hall basement ceiling, and what is that specifically?
That's the other side.
Who can answer that?
She's right.
What, I'm sorry, what?
The town hall basement ceiling and miscellaneous improvements for $25,000.
Yes, we've been trying to continue to upgrade this town hall, and that is the next thing that we have on the list.
What is it specifically, Robin, is
Ceiling?
these,
Oh, where am I? Town hall?
these ceilings?
Basement
or the-
ceiling and
I guess, on the other
miscellaneous
side?
improvements.
Is that a want or a need?
It can be deferred if you feel it's necessary.
It's the last
You know,
one.
it's difficult to keep deferring and deferring. It's a small amount. We did look for what we were gonna do in the town hall, to just use a small amount. So, because I knew so much else was there, we had other things that didn't make it. You can.
Through the chair, it probably makes sense to do. That being said, I think our collective group needs to start drawing a line in the sand to say that we're not going to draw down stabilization anymore. And this would, Joe, correct me if I'm at, but this would bring us at least back to even.
That's right. Put us 5 to the good.
Oh, there you go, yes, there you go. So, to me, even though we probably should do it, I think this is a sign to the town voters that, look, if we are not gonna reduce stabilization anymore. And if you don't like us not doing that, get rid of us. But in the meantime, here's what we're doing.
So I'm taking that out.
Well, I don't know if that's
Or we
The chair.
can reduce tax committee?
I would suggest removing the 5,000 from town clerk, then before reducing
For the book and journal? For book and journal?
Before doing tech committee.
I would actually recommend,
Oh, I would
yeah, but
recommend.
if she draws down on that, it's a multi-year thing, so she's ready to do something.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't touch
About that.
Tech committee is what we, last year, talked about, we were gonna maintain that
You were
every
maintaining
year
that.
to.
And we haven't talked about that we had this crisis out.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Yeah.
That's all of us.
We may need more money for that.
I'm fine with the basement ceiling scratching,
Are we only,
right? That gives us 5
out
to
of
the good,
the
right?
voting system.
Through the chair, when they're throwing in $300,000 worth of legal bills, I think we can tighten the belt on the ceiling.
Through the chair, if you get National Grid in again and change these lights for about 1/3 or 1/5 of the cost,
Okay.
that would be a huge improvement through the programs that they have.
Oh, Mass Save?
A massive, exactly.
Alright, so we're deleting the basement ceiling
And then they charge back,
Town clerk.
and then they charge back.
The chargeback, actually, you can put it on.
No, no.
So you're not
No, we're
touching
not touching the voting or the.
both
or
of
the
the
book.
departments?
And it'll reduce electricity.
That's not mean it may vote that stuff down, but at least gives us the opportunity, yeah.
Right.
But at least we can walk in there saying, we did not reduce stabilization.
Exactly. Be happy with that.
So
And cruisers made it at 3.
Yes, they did.
Yep.
Alright, but you better not come back for 3 next year.
Through the chair, town clerk.
Yes.
So-
Electric voting system.
Yes.
20,000.
Yes, we hashed that one out before you got here, I think.
You missed it,
It's obvious as to know so much face.
I'm gonna keep in the
Is that staying or going?
That's staying.
Staying.
Staying for now.
Staying.
I thought we were
Long
gonna make a
conversation,
personal
watch the tape.
donation.
No, that one will come before town meeting.
In a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Very good. So we'll have it for the annual town meeting. If it passes.
Theoretically, you would think.
You would think.
Right.
All right, so right now, we're still on reviewing the warrant articles. Remember, you get all the notes that you need to get us up to speed?
I do, so let's just,
Now you better close.
so we need to close the warrants. So, I just want to make sure we didn't miss
Go
any.
through.
Yeah, so Article 1, for purposes of people that are at home. Appropriation of funds for unpaid bills of the prior fiscal year. We have one bill, $499 from B&H Photo and Video. Article 2 is intra-departmental transfers. We will make those changes as you have directed us today. Article 3 is an amendment to the 2020 budget. The cable, we were carrying to it within the main budget motion, 90,000 from cable. The cable contract has not settled. We've not gotten that money. We will not receive it yet. So just in case we don't receive it in time, we are going to transfer, raise and appropriate $90,000. And I did check with assessing, and they were comfortable with that, with the new book, moving it up. Article 4 is capital items and related contracts. We will adjust as you just directed. Article 5 is major fields improvement. It stays at $170,000, and the motion will be to borrow. Article 6 is replace the fire engine. That's a borrowing article. Transfer to and from stabilization funds. You have, that's Article 7, and if you look on your sheet, go through that, you have $260,000 from free cash going into stabilization. You have a request from water sewer for 3 transfers, one for to water stabilization, $220,436 from water retained earnings. Water stabilization fund to that. in the amount of $3,455,814.18 from the water RRFA. That was if you remember, that was the funding that was transferred from the general capital to the water capital that had come from Exxon. Right now, what you do need to know is if you move that over, right now the general fund has been getting the interest. If you move that to water stabilization, that money will go to water stabilization, so you can reduce your annual budget by about $10,000 a year. Water sewer stabilization, the retained earnings were $573,355, and they are wanting to shift that over and transfer it into that stabilization also.
Can I ask you a question?
Sorry, so the first water stabilization, we only wanted to transfer 20,436 and leave 200 in retained earnings. And for sewer, we wanted to transfer 323,355, leaving $250,000 in retained earnings for sewer.
Will you give me that in writing, please?
I will, that's it.
Thanks, Peter.
On Article 6, why would we do Article 6? And then take nothing from stabilization but legal, which would be less than what we're moving in. Oh, okay. I get why we did it originally,
So you can change that.
but
How
I'm
would
throwing it out.
How would you recommend change it?
Why wouldn't we just do all of it from free cash?
Before you move it in.
Then move what's left into stabilization. You move it to stabilization, and then you vote to take it out of stabilization.
My guess is the reason it was that way, remember, if you move it into stabilization first, it takes 2/3 vote to get it out.
I understand
Now
that.
so you're giving everybody, if you do it as free cash, it's just strictly garbage.
Okay, what's our goal? Get it done, or give someone the opportunity not to get it done?
In your policy, you have a percentage of free cash that you're supposed to put into the stabilization, so I think that's why you showed it that you were doing your goal of the percentage.
We would hope to always do at least 50% of free cash into.
Okay, we missed by a month.
I know we missed.
And then we're taking it back out, right?
But Articles 2 and 3 are funded for free cash, not
Yes.
stabilization.
Yeah, but articles, there's gonna be one article.
Legal article.
The legal article, which
After
would
we
be
moved it
Article,
into
I don't know,
stabilization.
8, I guess, right?
So I suppose the question is the legal important enough that we move it from free cash as opposed to stabilization? I'd probably make the argument that based upon what we're dealing with, I think I agree with Joe that, at least I hope it, that we don't want to move to stabilization first, that we should take the money for legal expenses from free cash.
Free cash, and then the balance move into
Whatever's left, stabilization.
Okay, so right now you have 260,000, so that would not go into stabilization, so I've removed that. And then you have reduced some of your capital enough that I can add 40,000 of what you reduced, like the planning, make that 300,000, and then whatever's left over from your free cash that you save, then we'll wipe that
Which
into.
would likely be nothing, based on, or very.
Okay.
5,000.
5,000.
Unless other free cash items get voted down, which could also happen.
Sorry, yeah.
Are you guys?
I'll do that.
That's a dollar amount in Article 6.
Yeah, that's good.
Article 6 is 200, well, right now it's 260, but it's probably gonna be more like 305,000.
Okay, for the purchase.
Oh, Article 6?
No, Article
Is that the fire engine? Mr. Chairman?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, this doesn't match, I'm sorry.
That's fine, you-
$604,800.
604,000. 800.
Rob, that's for the fire, that's for the fire truck.
5.
Yeah. Just make sure it's all the same article.
5.
We hope.
We hope not. But
Oh, they just drive around town.
Where are you, Robin, now?
Okay, so 5 and 6, you have borrowing articles. The 7, you just took out the 260,000, and Peter's gonna get, I had just transferred the retained earnings, which you had
Right.
asked for, so you wanna change
Okay,
those,
super.
get me those numbers, I'll put those in. Article 8 is removed, Article 9 is removed. Article 10, I will change that, legal and consulting services, and I will take out the rest of that, and I will make that a generic article.
And that's all gonna come from free cash.
Correct.
And you're gonna put the total lump sum in there? Or?
I will not put that in
Okay,
this
good.
warrant article, and that way as we get closer, you may know more.
Okay, good. 11 we're taking out.
Karen, you can tell David.
Apologize now, David, I'm sorry.
11, that's gone. 12, rescind the Potter, that's, Rich is okay. Social media bylaw, that, I sent out everybody the latest, so please take a look at that, let me know if you have any questions, comments. We'll be putting that, if I don't hear anything, or there's no changes, we'll be putting that in the town clerk's office so that they can take a look at it. It has gone through review of the department heads.
And just looking around, I'm sorry, there is no.
And technology committees.
There's no fiscal impact?
No, no fiscal.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, so is number 11 in or out?
Out.
Out.
Not doing that?
Nope.
Okay.
Not now, maybe later.
Article 14 is the bylaw amendment, adding a town meeting quorum. You had a placeholder, do you want to
Yes.
still do that? or
Honestly,
not?
I threw it out there because I realized that we don't have a quorum number for town meeting. I'm okay pulling it out and because I didn't really have a chance to talk to Linda or and doing it today. I mean, this is just one of those, hey, let's check the box.
Personally, I'm not in favor of quorum.
Yeah. You know what?
It's too easy to parent, and too easy to go the other way too.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't feel that strongly about it. If people want to remove it for a quicker, less controversial meeting, I'm more than happy to bring it back up in May, if necessary.
Okay.
And
Let's take it out.
since it's
Done.
changing,
Yep.
town meeting, you might want to do
Yep.
that in an
Yeah,
annual.
that's the
instead of
other thing
special.
that I just, it just kind of hit me.
Okay.
Done.
And I'd like more information about it.
Yeah.
Article
Think about
15
it.
and 16, 15 is to remove the chief from civil service, and 16 is to remove the police lieutenant from civil service. At this time, I have no zoning articles. Is the planning board planning on having any zoning articles? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Did we get any citizens petitions?
No.
Surprising.
Okay, so you want to
What did I just say?
close the warrant?
Okay, do I have a motion to close the warrants for the special town meeting Tuesday, October 8, 2019 at the Charlton Middle School, starts at 7 o'clock?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair, any opposed? The chair votes aye, so it passes, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Let's be
Warrants
realistic.
closed.
Okay. I will make these changes and adjustments and send them back out to the Board of Selectmen and committee. I will put this together so it's ready for posting, because at your next meeting, at least the Board of Selectmen, I'm going to need you to approve the articles as written for posting.
So, we have a meeting next week, but we're not going to work on this.
I would
That
like
would
it if I
be-
could give you ahead of time and you can actually do that, because I need to post by a certain date.
So you want us to have it on the 17th, which is
Yes.
next Tuesday? Okay.
We already have a
We have a goals and objectives workshop, so we'll just put it on.
Yeah, was that voted?
We can add it as an agenda item.
And I'll get it to you.
Did you look at the report?
Another email work.
We have on this schedule, because that was one of the last items on the
Don't even list
agenda here, was the.
That's so embarrassing.
Yeah, schedule. We're
It's
supposed
so
to,
few.
the finance committee's supposed to consider capital requests. We already did that, right?
Yes.
Even though it says for next week, so we're fine there.
So what you will do is when I give you the sheet, I'm gonna have it ready for you to say, I support, or I don't support, or I.
And that is gonna be at the October 2nd meeting? What meeting is that gonna be at?
What is your next meeting? Can you
Well,
do
we don't
next
have one, that's why I
Wednesday?
was-
These guys are doing next Wednesday. These guys are doing next Tuesday. Do you wanna do next Wednesday and we can just get it done?
Want to do it next Wednesday? I will tell you, I'm out of state, so it's up to you guys. You're gonna chair.
Wait a minute.
If I have to, sure.
You don't have to give your.
Committee's meeting next Wednesday to
Okay.
vote on all of the laws, whether we support or.
What's very
Wednesday.
18.
At
Got a busy
6:30.
schedule, gotta make sure.
Yeah, I know, good.
Wednesday at 6 or 6:30?
You have 5 meetings at this?
I don't know what exactly is this special financial line.
Yeah, 6 or 6:30. 6:30, okay, on Wednesday.
All right, so that's the planning calendar.
You retired?
The next item I had on my list was any other agenda items we didn't know about.
Mr. Chairman, one thing, item 8, I don't know if you still want to talk about that. The cost
Yes,
associated.
costs associated with the computer attack. Hi there.
I don't have any.
Okay, insurance. So I've been in touch with the insurance company. We're putting together the costs. We are tabulating human resources, what it took. So people were taking a look at whether or not there's going to be additional costs from our IT consultant. We're looking at, and we have some guesses on replacements of some of the servers. We have opened a claim. We do have insurance for this. We are also in contact with a attorney who will be paid by the insurance company that will give us a kind of forensic study to see how it got in. This is part of us doing due diligence. This cyberware basically is just ransomware. It doesn't go in and grab your document, your information and steal it. It really just locks it up and then asks for a money. I'm happy to say that the IT people and our staff worked really hard, and we did not pay the ransom, and we are up and running. There is some data that will be lost, and certainly some lessons that we will learn. But all in all, I think I have not heard any other town that's been able to get up and running in 10 days. So kudos to the staff. And they did give up their Labor Day weekend. Had all
So
the
as best you can figure, we're covered insurance-wise for just about every contingency here, whether it's buying a server or paying overtime or
anything that was destroyed or destructive, we could have a claim. If we want to do some upgrades, that would come out of the money that we've got earmarked here. That would not be covered by insurance. And I say that because I'm hoping that you will, once the studies are done, we will get a report from our IT administrator. We will also get a report from a third party. And my hope is that they will give you next steps and things to do. So some of that will be paid by insurance, some of that will be part of your own planning process.
Thanks, Billy. I forgot we skipped over that one at the time.
That's my value add for the night.
Okay, good. Well worth your time. All right, anything else we have before us that we want to talk about?
You have the FinCom transfer.
What's number 12?
FinCom transfer.
Oh, no, that was the calendar I was just talking about, just for this.
okay, all right.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, maybe a little bit.
Okay, FinCom transfer.
Yes, yes. That's the other agenda items not known at time up. All right, so what I have before me is we're going to revise my number here. 201-908-821-01, which was a reserve fund transfer request from the Board of Selectmen for $50,000, and they want to revise it so it goes into contract obligations account. I won't read the number, full consulting, legal, etc. So it's money already allocated, we're just moving it to a new account. So I'll entertain a motion that we, how do I put this? Accept this revised or transfer them? Amend, I'm sorry, that's the right word. Amend the motion to move the $50,000 into this consulting legal account.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those say no. There's a vote. Thank you very much. One more time. Anything else? It's 8:30. I did say we can try and keep it to 2 hours. All right, I'll entertain a motion that the Finance Committee adjourn. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say yes.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you very much, and thank you.
Hey guys, this is actually one of the better meetings. Not that's not you guys, I mean, this is just a good meeting.
Yeah, no, it's always good when you can accomplish something.
Good, good, good.